Zechariah chapter number 2. It's 13 verses. So again, just working our way one chapter at a time through the minor prophets, though unsticking the pages that get stuck in your Bible through lack of use. I think, how do you ever word that as a series? But that's sort of what we've been doing here. Even when those pages get stuck together from your things, there's a certain satisfaction when you just pull them apart, Oh, it's actually, I picked up someone else's Bible and did it to it. I think on the front it said, yeah. Chapter number 2. My Bible fell open very easily to this. I don't know about yours, but the 13 verses says this: I lifted up mine eyes again. Now this is, if you remember from whenever it was 2 weeks ago that we were last in Zechariah, or chapter number 1, there's a series of visions that are taking place here. And this is the third one, I think. I think it's the third one that he has seen. The horse among the myrtle trees, then the carpenters. Here he lifted up his eyes again, Zechariah, and he looked, and behold, a man with a measuring line in his hand. Then said I, Whither goest thou? And he said unto me, To measure Jerusalem, to see what is the breadth thereof, and what is the length thereof. And behold, the angel that talked with me went forth, and another angel went out to meet him, and said unto him, Run, speak to this young man, saying, Jerusalem shall be inhabited as towns without walls, for the multitude of men and cattle therein. For I, saith the Lord, will be unto her a wall of fire round about, and will be the glory in the midst of her. Ho, ho, come forth, and flee from the land of the north, saith the Lord, for I have spread you abroad as the four winds of the heaven, saith the Lord. Deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwellest with the daughter of Babylon. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, After the glory hath he sent me unto the nations, which spoiled you. For he that toucheth you toucheth the apple of his eye. For behold, I will shake mine hand upon them, and they shall be a spoil to their servants, and ye shall know that the Lord of hosts hath sent me. Sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for lo, I come. And I will dwell in the midst of thee, saith the Lord. And many nations shall be joined to the Lord in that day, and shall be my people. And I will dwell in the midst of thee, and thou shalt know that the Lord of hosts hath sent me unto thee. And the Lord shall inherit Judah his portion in the Holy Land, and shall choose Jerusalem again. Be silent, O all flesh, before the Lord, for he is raised up out of his holy habitation. Oh, Ben's ready to go. That's an amen of deep understanding, was it, Ben? Good. Any thoughts here? Thoughts, observations, questions, queries, whatever? What do you got? Some feedback here out of chapter number 2. Blue?
Yeah, verse 12 is pretty obvious. The Lord shall inherit Judah, his portion in the Holy Land. He shall choose Jerusalem.
Yeah, it is. Yep. Yep. It's the focal point of history. Yeah. Any other thoughts or observations, Jackie?
Two things that kind of struck me. Verse 10, it's showing us that God was coming down to earth to be a man. Well,
Yeah.
then just verse 8, for he that toucheth you toucheth the apple of his eye. The first thing I was thinking, well, if you're the apple of somebody's eye, it's special.
Yes.
It just for me shows, how special we are to God.
Yep. Yeah. Two things on that. That verse 10 is central to the whole Bible, because I come, and I will dwell in the midst of thee. Like, that's the very purpose of what God is working towards. You think of the Garden of Eden and God walking with man in the cool of the day, and then sin separates that. But ultimately, the tabernacle was in the midst of Jerusalem and everyone around, and then it was in the midst of the midst of the people, and then the temple in the midst of Jerusalem. It's God being in the center of his people. And then you have Jesus comes and he tabernacled with us. He dwelt among us. Is that God comes down to man, Emmanuel, God with us. And then ultimately, as you go through to the New Jerusalem, it's God, the throne of God. It's not that we are with God for all eternity. God actually comes and dwells amongst us in the New Jerusalem, and his throne is in the New Jerusalem. It's central to the workings of God that he will dwell amongst the midst of his people, but he cannot dwell amongst us with the sin, but God deals with the sin through Jesus. And so he's working through these things. And the apple of his eye, that's a phrase that's used throughout the Bible. I did a little bit of research on this to find out, because I know it and I've heard it before, and it's an expression that's used, it's particularly in English, and dates back even a long way. But that idea has to do with the pupil. The center part of the pupil. And so if you're the center of someone's pupil, the apple of the eye, as the expression is used, it's also known as the little man of the eye, is another way of expressing the term. And what they mean by that is that if you're looking at someone and you're looking in their eyes, that you can almost see the reflection of what they're looking at in their eye, the little man of the eye. So they're looking at you see this little man is where the expression comes from. But it's the center of the eye. It means it's the center of the vision. It's what they're focused on and what their point is. And we use that expression as a term of endearment, that our children are the apple of our eye. That it's a term of endearment to say, man, that's what my vision is. They're central to my life and central to me. And Israel here, God is saying that they are the apple of his eye, that his people are center in his focus and in his vision. And that's where his vision is towards his people. And you think about this, it's not because they were having a zenith in a spiritual sense, that they were really doing well spiritually. They actually weren't doing great, as they never seem to be doing great spiritually. And yet God says, you're the apple of my eye. And still his mercy and his grace is extended to them in that expression. Any other thoughts here, Cahill?
Many nations shall be joined to the Lord, and that day shall be one people.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Gentiles know God as well, and many nations.
Yeah.
Before it was just one nation. It was Israel, and you pretty much had to, come to Israel and figure out what the goal is for. When Jesus came, he opened it up to everybody.
Yep. Yep.
And I will dwell in the midst of thee, and thou shalt know that the Lord of hosts hath sent me unto thee. It's interesting what it says there. I don't know what you reckon, but it says, thou shalt know that the Lord of hosts hath sent me unto thee. What's he referring to? Like, who's me? Is that referring to Zechariah?
I'm not sure. I didn't study that bit. Didn't get that far. Yeah, Ella, what was your dad said that Ella did a speech on Monday, and she had to get up and she had to give a report on all the study that she's been doing this year in the laboratory, and then your dad said that they helped you, that if someone asked a question outside of the thing, what was your response? How was you supposed to respond?
The scope of my study.
Yeah, what is it?
That's a really good question, but that's beyond the scope of my study.
Yeah, so Carl, yeah. So, yeah, it's a really good question, but that's outside the scope of my studies. So yeah. That might come out a few times on the Wednesdays coming up. Yeah. Me may refer to the angel if the angel's speaking to him. There is some notion or some opinions amongst commentaries that the angel that's mentioned here, the angel of the Lord, is referring back to Jesus. It's a Christophany of Jesus. There are those that hold that opinion. But again, I didn't look into that beyond what I just said then. Connor.
Well, verse 10 and 11 make you think of heaven, and how it says, sing and rejoice and I just love seeing about heaven and day that will come where we're going to be in heaven, we're going to be rejoicing, everything's going to be perfect, and God is going to be dwelling in the midst of us, and it's all.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. And the older you get, the sweeter heaven becomes. There's the state of the actual what the promises are. Like you said, joy and rejoicing and no sickness and sorrow and just joy. And man, that's a promise, man. That's absolutely. Yeah, in his presence is fullness of joy. Yep, and he will dwell amongst us and we will be in his presence and there will be fullness of joy. Yeah.
It says, sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for lo, I come and I will dwell.
Yeah. And
So it's a future thing.
yeah.
Sing and rejoice.
He's there. It's in the context, all right. So we're picking out verses here, but time is getting away from us here as much as there's some good stuff here. In the context of what's taking place, Zechariah chapter number 2. Zechariah, remember, is a contemporary with Haggai. So they are back. Israel is back, or at least they're back from Babylon after captivity, and they're rebuilding the temple. They've laid the foundation. And they are working on rebuilding the temple. Haggai, remember that they got distracted there for a while for some political reasons and different things. And he says, how long will this my house lay waste and you go out building your own and you're not really on my agenda? Get back on the agenda of getting God and his house center. And that's Haggai's message to them. Zechariah is prophesying at the same time. And think of this though, they're not building in a city that is lush and beautiful and all put together. They are building in rubble. Like everywhere, the walls are broken down, the temple was burnt, the palaces were burnt, the chief cities, the chief houses were all destroyed. They are building in ruins. I don't know if you've ever seen photos of ruined places, it might be Hurricane Katrina that came through a few years back and wiped out that region of New Orleans. Just destruction everywhere. In Oklahoma City, where I lived, the May 99 tornado lives in infamy as one of the biggest, largest tornadoes ever recorded on planet Earth. They said it was up to a mile wide and the wind speed was some ridiculous amount of wind. And I can't remember if it was miles or kilometers. Miles seems extravagant, but either way, it's like 360 miles an hour or 500 like straight line winds. I mean, it destroyed everything. And there's a satellite picture from a high plane, and where the city was and where it went through, you can actually see a dirt track winding its way through the city. It's just completely ripped up every house, every foundation, every tree, every bit of grass, and a dirt track went through, and then either side of that is just houses are turned to toothpicks. Well, you can imagine that on the city, say, of Jerusalem. They've come back to it, rubble, ruin, burnt down, destroyed. I mean, overgrown of ivy and things, 70 years or 80 years or so of just overgrowth. And they're in there working there, and they're saying, and you know what they feel like as a city is what I think the first vision that is given is the horse rider among the myrtle trees. That the myrtle tree is not a large tree, and it says the myrtle tree at the bottom is with the first vision that is given. And all of these visions have to do with encouraging them about the city of Jerusalem. And the whole book of Zechariah is about the city of Jerusalem. And so these first visions that are given are to encourage them to say, right, you might be building amongst rubble, and it might look like you are of the myrtle trees that are at the bottom in the scope of the world, that there are taller cedar trees, and sort of comparing kingdoms by trees. And Nebuchadnezzar was deemed to be a large tree that filled all the earth. And you're saying, right, there might be big cedar trees and big nations out there, and they're doing great things. And no one really knows anything about Israel. No one really even thinks about Jerusalem. You feel like a myrtle tree at the bottom of the social ladder of sorts. But God is saying in chapter number 1, verse 14, I am jealous for Jerusalem and for Zion with a great jealousy, right? I want to encourage you that you started building the temple, you've laid the foundation, you're trying to reestablish this city. Let me encourage you, I'm not done with this city. Don't think the glory days were back in David's day or Solomon's day or Hezekiah's day or Josiah's day. He's saying, no, I still have great plans for the city of Jerusalem. which is why we're still in 2023, still talking about the city of Jerusalem. Because God's not done with the city of Jerusalem. And he is saying, my glory will yet fill this city. And though they rebuilt the city, it never really, in the days of the Maccabees and all the way through the Roman occupation, it never really came as fantastic as it was maybe in Solomon's day, which means this, that this prophecy is still yet to be fulfilled. The true glory is when Jesus Christ rules and reigns and sits upon the throne of David, his father, and rules over Jerusalem and over Israel from Jerusalem and rules the nations. And then the true glory of God will be in that city, flowing out of that city, like even greater than it was when Solomon was the king and ruling. So he says, be encouraged. Don't just look around at the ruins, because as much as you might think that you're at the bottom, you're the myrtle tree at the bottom, God is saying, I yet have great plans, and I will be great, and I will build this place up. Look at chapter 2 and verse 1. Another vision that he had was, I lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a man with a measuring line in his hand. You know what a measuring line is? Tape measure. I'd imagine that this guy's walking in, he sees this vision. Picture this, rubble everywhere. And the guy comes in with his, I'm sure this is how the vision went. He comes in with a safety hat on. He's got a clipboard here, and he's got a high-vis jacket on, and poking out of there are the wings from the angel. And he's in there, and he's walking in with a hard hat on, and with a pencil behind his ear, and a tape measure. And he's walking around the city. Yeah, all right. And he's measuring over here, and he's measuring. Can you just hold this for me, Zechariah? Yeah, measuring this bit, and he's measuring this, and he's jotting down some stuff in this vision. And the whole picture is to say this. You ever had a renovation project, and you have someone come in, and they're going to design what the new might be, the new bathroom, the new kitchen, the new something, and they come in, and they're measuring up here, and they're measuring up there, and they do this, and then they go away, and they design it all, and say, look, this is what it's going to be like. And I think in this vision, he's saying, right, you might look at rubble right now, but God is saying, right, I've measured this place, and the plans I have for this are going to be amazing. Trust me, all right? Be encouraged. You might feel that you're at the bottom, but God has plans for this place. And he says, the walls and the cities are where the walls are. He says, forget about those walls. They ain't going to be even big enough, because this place is going to be swelling beyond the walls, and there's going to be so many people flowing into the city of Jerusalem. It's going to be amazing. And you think, well, how are you going to build walls to protect that much? He says, don't worry about it. I will be the fire about thee. I will protect you. I will be the one that does that. And so every vision here is to encourage them that God ain't done. And God has a plan, and he's working the plan, and it's going to yet be better than it ever was. And that's the testimony that we have, and that's the hope that we have as Christians, that no matter where you feel like you are right now in this moment, and you might feel that you're at the bottom in life, for whatever that means in your life, know this. The promise is going to be so good at the fulfillment of the New Jerusalem and all of those things and the glory of God, and it's going to be good. And that's the promises of God. And he says, I got it. I'm building a mansion here. And he's doing it. He's building a mansion. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and build a place, I will come again. Receive you unto myself, that where I am, that ye may be also. There's lots of things here. And again, we could say more about this, and we will just leave off there. But he's measuring it. And he has a future for it. And it's to encourage them to keep going, keep building, keep doing the Lord's work, because God has a plan. I'm going to leave off there, and we'll look at chapter number 3.